Big news from Subaru today. The third generation WRX is here, and in this video we're going to discuss the design from front to side and of course the rear as well, and then I'm going to redesign it. But before we do that, let's have a look at some of the spec and tech of the 2022 Subaru WRX. It's powered by a 271 horsepower turbocharged 2.4 liter flat 4, and it adds a new GT model with adaptive dampers. You can get it with either a 6-speed manual, which is fantastic in this day and age, or you can go with a pedal shift automatic if that's what you feel like. It will go on sale early 2022 and pricing is yet to be announced. If you, like me, was hoping for a hatchback version of the new 2022 WRX, you're going to be disappointed because it's only being built as a sedan. That's all for the spec and tech. Now I definitely want to jump in and talk about this new design here. I think Subaru played us a trick here. It's a trick I haven't seen for a very long time. A trick I thought was long gone and played out, and the trick is showing us awesome concept cars for years leading up to the real thing, only to find out that they were just joking around. For example, we saw the Subaru WRX concept from 2013, very clean and crisp design with lines that feel a lot more confident and modern than what we see in today's 2022 production car. And then we have the Visive STI concept from 2018, which is clearly what the 2022 car should have looked like. It's beefy, it's planted, modern and sharp with a clear Subaru design language both in graphics and the proportions. However, instead of the headliner, we ended up with the cover band. I've received some DMs asking me to make a video about the 2022 WRX, and I'm happy to try and express my thoughts on this car in this video today. So when I first saw it, I can't say really that it blew me away. The design is a 2022 model, but it feels more like a 2012. I do kind of like the front view. That's the view where the car looks more modern. You can trace some of the graphics back to the concepts of 2018. The rear doesn't need a bumper anymore because we have a diffuser to fill that space. The black fender flares make the wheels look even smaller than what they already are, like tiny little bottle caps lost in a massive black hole, and this becomes even more pronounced on a white car. It doesn't help that the shoulder line seems to be very confused and doesn't really know what to aim at or what to connect with. I'm sure it's a fantastic car to drive. The WRXs have always been fun cars to drive. However, for me, I like to know that I'm sitting inside a beautiful sculpture, that I'm doing the fellow drivers around me a service by driving past them, giving them the opportunity to admire the design inside maneuvering. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna happen with the 2022 WRX. I do have hope for this design. I do think there are some tweaks, small tweaks to the design that we can make to move it closer to the Visive performance concept from 2018 that looked so good in proportions and beefiness and plantedness and everything, and most importantly in the perception of width and overall stance. So what I'm going to do now is focus on the rear view in the redesign, but I want to talk about all the views here in Photoshop. So let's have a look at this design right here. Let's start with the front. This front, I think it looks pretty great actually. It's a cool transformation of the old WRX, and I think it looks close enough to the Visive concept. We do have some sharpness, some crispness in this design, as you can see, and I really like that these lines here, they connect in a very crisp and sharp way with the grille here. As you can see, we have a lot of sharp chamfers, and I'm always a fan of chamfers as long as they play well together, and I really do think that the front end here with all these chamfers here, as you can see, I think it really plays well with the design and overall transformation or evolution of the Subaru design language. And specifically now that we have these typical design features and graphics that we're gonna see specifically at night when these LEDs are on, you're definitely gonna tell that this is a Subaru that you're looking at. And of course we have a big beautiful air intake that I believe is functional, because they've always been functional on the WRX. And it just looks cool. It looks like a rally car, and also with these black fender flares here, it suits the car. However, what these fender flares do to the car and to the wheels is it just doesn't look right with these wheels. This is one of these cars that you really need to have the right wheels and the correct fitment with the wheels inside the wheelhouse, because the wheelhouse here now looks like this is cut off from the body. So is this part right here. It's not part of the white body, so it feels like the wheelhouse is actually bigger than what it is graphically. Specifically, if you look at it from a side view right here, you can see that if we just play around with the contrast, if we make this darker, you're gonna see that this looks now like this is all hollow here, and you have the tiny wheels sitting inside this big massive hole there. So how do we solve this problem? Well, I do like the fender flares because I think they look like rally inspired, and that's what this car is all about. You need some ground clearance here, and you also need some plastic cladding to support or protect from chips and so on. They suit the overall car, but we can't have these kind of wheels here now. We need to have wheels that actually fill out this space and stick further out in the rear. So let's have a look at the rear here and see how we can solve this. So here we have the rear view. Now this is where my main issues come into play, I guess we could say, and that is that the proportions between these graphic features, they just don't work for me, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here. We have, for example, this is one graphic features that is pretty important for this car and any other car. It's the height and width of the taillight graphics of any car. So this is the height that we have for this section right here. If we look at the diffuser, it stretches all the way up from this point right here all the way to this point right here. So this makes the diffuser a lot thicker in height than the light assembly in the rear. That's fine, but in this case it just looks off for some reason. I want to have more of a difference between these two, and I think the way we're gonna do it is by shrinking down and making the taillights a bit more squintier, and also we need to just lower this diffuser because it sticks way too far up and it looks off for some reason. I think if we do this, if we make these taillights here, if we make them go like this and remove this part right here, make this white, same on this side right here, we make them narrower and not so high. On top of that, you see this black part right here? I'm not sure why we should add this black part on this car unless we want to have a light bar in there. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add a light bar that goes to this point right here and then continues going in here, because why otherwise would we have this black piece there? We can do the light bar or we can make it white. And I think going back to the Visio Performance concept, it had a beautiful light bar stretching from one side to the other. So I think that's a good way to approach this design. And then I'm not a fan of this lip here at all, that they added this little spoiler here. What I want to do, they have a good solution to this already in the Subaru BRZ, the new one. We have this beautiful ducktail that just sticks out like this, that is integrated in the trunk, and it's not something that they added on. So that's what I want to add here as well, an integrated beautiful ducktail. And if you want to go crazy, Subaru STI crazy, you can always add a massive wing like this if you want to, but that should be an option. If we just have the body, I just want to have the integrated ducktail, and then you can have like a dual wing. You can have the ducktail, some downforce, and then if you really want to have the rear pushing down at high speeds, just add the STI wing as an option. Perfect solution to this problem. Another thing that's pretty interesting here is the placement of the exhaust. So let's have a look at this. Here is the housing for the exhaust. And you can see that we have this whole space here is empty. Same thing on this side, obviously. So what I want to do is make the exhaust fit the housing, and that means that we take these two and we move them up just a little bit so that they actually sit inside of the housing and don't look like they're about to fall off the car. Squinting the taillights right here, moving down this diffuser to this point, something like this, have this be white right here, body colored. And of course, last but not least, if we look at these wheels here, we can see that this is the angle. It sits very far in from the body. This is a turned wheel, so we can't really see it as well in the front as we can in the rear. What I want to do here, obviously, I think you know already what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the same wheel design, same everything, same tire, whatever, and just move it out a little bit so that it sits something like this and stretches a bit further up. So maybe one and maybe 2 dimensions larger wheels. Maybe not going to be the best for rally or off-roading, but it's going to look 100 times better when we do that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make some beefier rear tires here. And these are the changes I would do to the Subaru WRX. I think it's going to work. So let's continue here and let's see how this is going to turn out. All right, so here we are, guys. I really think this looks a lot better than the original design. Usually when I make these redesigns, I make them to just look different and not necessarily better. I just want to have a different version of the design that's already out there and make it my own. But in this case, I really want to make the rear end of the WRX, I want to make it look better because it's so close to being there. These are the small changes that they needed to get done. Make it more dynamic rear end. It looks too static in the original right here. If we remove all my notes here, it looks too static here. It feels like it looks like an older design, and we have too similar relations in the graphics proportions of the taillights and the diffuser and the lower part of the exhaust and so on. And I really think that this redesign actually makes it look better than the original. They're so close to what I want them to look like, and the reason being, the main challenge here, if you look at the original, you can see that the relation between the graphics are too similar in the proportions. So what I'm talking about is you have relationship between the graphics of the taillight right here and how the proportions of the height and the length of this, and then you have the height and the length of the rear diffuser. These are too similar and the gap between them here is too short. What we need to do is increase that and make some more movement of the proportions and the relationship between these two. And that's what I think we did when we transformed it into this, because now we have a more of squinty design of the taillights. As you can see here, they're a lot narrower. It looks a lot more modern this way. I think adding the light bar also adds to the modernness of this car, and lowering this made a huge difference to the proportions and the graphics of the rear end of this car. Of course, then moving these tailpipes and having them actually fit the housing of the tailpipes made a big difference as well. And last but not least, the wheels here, totally 100 times better. There's gonna do before after here. This is before, this is after. Before, you can see the integrated ducktail there that I added as well in the trunk. I think that looks a lot better than this interesting spoiler that they just stuck on there. That's my redesign of the WRX. Let me know what you think of the WRX. Are you a fan of the 2022 model, or do you think it looks a little too tame? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.